friends, for this month's edition of The Shepherd's Voice. Happy to have you here. And here is the host of the program, the Bishop of Trenton, David M. O'Connell. Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Good to be with you, or good afternoon, I should say. The day goes so fast.
Yeah, doesn't it?
This has been a very busy month. In fact, I missed the radio program earlier in October. There's so many things going on during the course of the month. We had, in our diocese, we had the anniversary blessings, which we have every year, this year on the 2nd and the 9th. And we split the diocese. We have Ocean and Monmouth County at the Co-Cathedral, and we have Mercer and Burlington at the Cathedral in Trenton. So it was a beautiful celebration. Of course, the Co-Cathedral was full. It was very, very well packed. We had about 70 different couples in the cathedral in Trenton. So we always get a little bit more for Ocean and Monmouth County. But it was a beautiful occasion to celebrate marriage and all that marriage and family life means to us in the church today. We had our Catholic Schools Mass, which we have annually on Wednesday, October the 12th, which is, by the way, it's the feast of Blessed Carlo Acutis. And as many of you may know, Carlo Acutis was made blessed by Pope Francis. He is a young man. He died at the age of 15, born in England, and lived his life in Milan, Italy, but a saintly young man who is real inspiration for our young people. And last year I made, on the occasion of his beatification, made him the patron of all diocesan young people, and especially those in schools and religious education programs. So we had the opportunity to celebrate his feast day together with the school children, and again at the Co-Cathedral, a beautiful occasion. Our schools office in the diocese, Dan O'Connell, the associate director there, put together a beautiful mass and invited all of the schools, and we had good attendance. So it was great to have that opportunity to contact our students, and of course the usual picture taking occurred, which probably was longer than the mass.
Right.
Afterwards, with all the kids. And on October 15th, we had a rosary rally over at Incarnation in Ewing, Incarnation St. James. Maybe about 30, 35 people, and we participated in the call for praying the rosary that went out to the whole country, for our country, to pray for our country, and that was a good opportunity to be together with people. I love the rosary. It's such a beautiful and important prayer. Of course, October, the month of the Holy Rosary. So I hope people will continue to pray the rosary, and more people will pray the rosary. It's a very beautiful and a powerful prayer, seeking Our Lady's intercession. On the 16th of October, I consecrated and blessed our first diocesan shrine, and that was at St. Mary's out in New Monmouth, with Father Jeff Kegley there, and Father Mark Nilo, who is new parochial vicar, assigned there, and we had a beautiful celebration of that. The old chapel there. I don't know whether you've been out there.
I've not yet, no, but
beautiful. It's a beautiful chapel, and Father Kegley renovated it a little bit and really just made it a very hospitable and a welcoming place for people to come and worship the Eucharist 24/7. And it was really a very moving experience for me as bishop to see the great devotion people have for the Eucharist, and to hear from Father Kegley, who I think, has he been on our program?
He was on to talk about that, sure.
Okay, so Father Kegley was really just so instrumental in advocating this opportunity. Of course, as we know, there are many parishes that have adoration in the Blessed Sacrament 24/7. This is the first diocesan shrine, and that's the thing that made this unique for us. And so I hope that people will have the chance to stop in and visit. Father tells me, he told me he has the 3:00 a.m. shift, because the church's law says that if the Blessed Sacrament is going to be exposed, there should be someone present
exactly
during that time. And so they take turns, they sign up.
And we run a spot regularly, looking for adorers.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the shrine.
And that's true of all parishes, but certainly true there.
Mm-hmm.
And Father tells me, so when he goes over for his 3:00, there are people there,
Yeah.
3 in the morning,
Yeah, that's great.
praying. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you a kind of a rundown of what October was like since I missed giving you advance notice of it earlier in the month. But we had the deacon convocation, and that was a beautiful occasion. Father Steve Sansevier, who was a deacon for many, many years in the diocese, gave the convocation to those gathered. It was a pretty full attendance. And then I celebrate the Mass. And then afterwards, as is my custom when I go to big gatherings like that, I give a chance for what maybe you would call a little State of the Union talk, just to explain some of the things that are going on in the diocese, and to give people the opportunity to ask questions if they have some questions, or to make some comments to me. And the deacons didn't disappoint. They certainly participated actively in it, and it was worthwhile for sure. Later that day, I went down to Howell, to St. Veronica's Parish, where we celebrated World Mission Sunday with Father P.J. Allen Dogan, the pastor there, and Father John Chang, who was the parochial vicar, and many representatives of missions who are in the area or who are promoting mission awareness in the country. It was a beautiful, beautiful Mass, and Father P.J. is the diocesan director for the propagation of the faith for our mission office, and so he hosted me. And it was the 200th anniversary of the founding of the Fund of the Propagation of the Faith for missions, and so it was a nice occasion. Monsignor Kieran Harrington, who was the national director of the Propagation of the Faith, was on hand too, and we honored some students whose drawings or artwork were selected to celebrate mission awareness and Mission Sunday, and so it was a beautiful, beautiful occasion. A number of priests were present, and a number of sisters who are missionaries and serving there. Then the next day, I went to, not too far away, went to West Trenton to celebrate the 75th anniversary of Our Lady of Good Counsel Parish. Father Ariel Robles is the pastor there. And that was a pretty full church and a great celebration of 75 years of service here in West Trenton. And Father Ariel is, he's a very talented fellow, and he had the church beautifully decorated. It was really a very, very nice celebration. And then we blessed the newly renovated church center there, which is underneath the parish church, and then pretty full. And they had a nice luncheon provided for people, and it was great. I enjoy traveling around the diocese. Give me a chance to get to the different parishes and let people see that there is a bishop. They have a bishop, and that the bishop loves them very much and cares very much for them. Then on Halloween,
you went trick-or-treating.
Wouldn't that be great? I had to stop trick-or-treating when I was in 6th grade because I was so big.
Really?
People didn't believe I was a kid. I was 6'2".
Wow. In 6th grade?
Yeah.
Wow.
Both ways, I think. I was a kind of heavy kid, too. But anyway, I went down to visit with my very good friend, Father Robert Schlageter, who is now the pastor at St. Peter Church, which is a conventual Franciscan parish run by the conventual Franciscans, a diocesan parish, but they run it for us. And he and I were together for my 12 years at Catholic Youth. He was our chaplain. He was marvelous, just a great, and people love him so much. And we got together. We took old times. We went out and got some hoagies and sat on the front porch, and then we waited for the kids because they had their annual Halloween parade.
Oh, right.
So that's a marvelous school, St. Peter. Just a great school, and I wish more people would take advantage in that area, would take advantage of that school, because they have some of the best scores, academic scores, of any school in the diocese and in New Jersey. And
now, is that Point Pleasant?
Point Pleasant,
right?
yeah, Point Pleasant Beach area. And it was just great seeing all these little kids and the faculties and administrators all dressed up too, and they parade around. It was a great, great occasion. So that brings us to November.
November, and here we are already.
Here we are. And off to a good start.
Yeah.
You know, Jim, when you and I first started talking about the shepherd's voice, and we tried to find a convenient time, or
Hmm.
of course, there's no time that's convenient all the time, but
Right.
First Friday seemed to be maybe the
Right.
best time to
Mhm.
do it, and I think sometimes it's hit or miss, because if I have a funeral or something
Right.
like that,
Right.
we
Right.
have to
Right.
move it.
Hmm.
But First Friday is a beautiful occasion, as our listeners know. Many of them practice devotion on First Fridays of the
Hmm.
month. Uh, those devotions sometimes called the act of reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and it's a Catholic devotion that's grown up in the church to offer reparation for sins.
Hmm.
And I think that's an important thing to be mindful of, especially in these days when people don't think of sin and they don't think anything is a sin, or they don't have remorse for some of the choices that we make in life, which are
Right.
sinful. And the First Friday devotion, the idea came about through the apparition to St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, who, 17th century, who had great devotion to the Sacred Heart. And in fact, in 1675, the Lord Jesus appeared to her and promised her that whoever honors his Sacred Heart on 9 consecutive Fridays will receive great blessing and inherit the promises that the Lord made in that apparition.
Hmm.
Giving them the graces for their state in life, being with them at the time of death,
Hmm.
and a whole host of promises that our Lord made. And so it's really a very nice devotion. And so I'm happy when I can make it on a Good Friday,
Yeah.
on a First Friday,
Yeah.
to be with our folks. We continue our Eucharistic revival. Um, still, even after almost 2 years or more, that that still doesn't sound Catholic,
Right.
revival.
Right. Right. Right.
But it certainly is, and the bishops in establishing this were very conscious of making
Hmm.
sure that people understood this is not initiated, this is a revival of what has always been
Right.
in the church. And in light of that, I spent some time this summer writing a series on the Eucharist,
Hmm.
because the way that the bishops set this Eucharistic revival up is over a 3-year period. The first year would be the dioceses would try to promote and foster devotion to the Eucharist in the Mass, which is
Hmm.
the primary devotion, and then through adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, and communion to the sick and to the homebound and all of that. So we've been working on that. We have a committee. Folks probably know about that. Father Martin O'Reilly, the pastor over in Bordentown, St. Mary's in Bordentown, and Hushway Areola, who works in the Chancery in the Office of Evangelization. They're the co-chairs, and they have a committee.
Hmm.
And they're developing different things that we can do within the diocese to honor our Lord's real presence in the Blessed Sacrament. Again, both on the altar
Hmm.
at Holy Mass and in the tabernacle and in adoration. And so they've done a very, very good job, and they're continuing their work. We started with a Eucharistic procession on the Feast of Corpus Christi,
Hmm.
which is very appropriate for that. And actually, many parishes restored the practice of
Yeah.
Eucharistic processions
Hmm.
that day. And the parish phase of the Eucharistic revival will begin this coming Feast of Corpus Christi.
Hmm.
And so we're encouraging all of the parishes to develop or reintroduce devotion to the Eucharist,
Hmm.
as we have had in the past. We used to have a practice 40 hours devotion,
Right.
where you'd take 3 days and 3 nights where you would have the folks invited to the parish church, and they generally would bring in a speaker who would speak about the Eucharist and have Mass and benediction, the Blessed Sacrament. And those are always great occasions. I remember them growing up
Well, the Archdiocese, I think, still has them around the feast day of the parish.
in
Or they
Philadelphia.
encourage it, yeah.
Yeah, they encourage it.
Hmm.
In our diocese, here in the Diocese of Trenton, we celebrated 40 hours devotion at St. Hedwig's Parish this year.
Mm-hmm.
And St. Hedwig's is our national Polish parish, Catholic parish here in the Diocese of Trenton. Father Jacek Lewinsky is the pastor there, been there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's celebrated in both Polish and English, but largely Polish. We had a speaker, very fine speaker, who gave a homily in Polish. And then another priest, a Pauline priest from New York, who came. The Paulines are the priests that run the Czestochowa Shrine in Doylestown. And he came and spoke in English to the people. And then we had benediction, and then the priests who were present and the deacons and their wives. We had a nice dinner afterwards. I was a little disappointed. I told Father Jacek, I said, what, no pierogi? I was expecting Polish. And he's a good man.
Yeah.
And so we had that devotion. I'm hoping that maybe more parishes will consider it for this coming year in the parish phase.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And also maybe we'll continue the devotion. It's a beautiful devotion.
Yeah, it is. St. John Neumann, wasn't he the first one to?
Yeah, and it was a
encourage?
it was a great opportunity for priests in the region to be together. You know, they don't have many opportunities to join together. So usually on the last night of the 40 hours devotion, there would be a parish meal for the local clergy that would be present, and those were always great occasions. I wrote a series on the Eucharist. It's 5 parts. It could be 500 parts, really, to try to say everything there is to say. And I say that in the beginning. This is not exhausting, and it's not an exhaustive treatment of the Eucharist. But I was really disturbed when I heard a few years ago. It was, I think, before the pandemic, maybe 2019, where the Pew Research study, which does some really good work and a lot of good research and a lot of topics, not just religious, but every once in a while they'll take a look at religions, world religions, national, or the Catholic Church and some of its practices. And they released, you remember this? They released a report that said only like a third of Catholics surveyed believed in the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. So most thought that the Eucharist was a sign or a symbol of Jesus, not the real thing.
Right.
And so obviously that's going to be a source of disturbance to those of us who have responsibility for teaching about the Eucharist and for sharing the Eucharist with our faithful, with our good people. And so I thought it was important to, at least for me here as the chief teacher in the diocese, to offer teaching. And so we've tried to do it in writing. It's in the Monitor. I think it's in this month's edition, the whole series. And it's been on the website weekly.
Yeah.
And I videotaped it too. So for those who are maybe not more interested in watching it than reading it, they can watch it. And it's also on the podcast. So those who are not interested in reading or can't watch it can listen to it as they drive.
And we're also broadcasting it here. I said worked with Rayanne and
Are
Marianne
you? I didn't realize
on our
that.
Friday program.
Oh, I think you
So
said. I think you did say that to me.
next hour after this program at 4:15, we'll air part 2. So we did part 1 last week, but we'll.
What I tried to do there, and really it's a very simple. You know, I'm not trying to present myself as a great scholar, but what I tried to do is just to show that our belief in the Eucharist as the body and blood of Christ has been what the Church has always believed.
Right.
And it's never wavered in that belief.
Right.
And so for me to hear Catholics, a third of Catholics believe in it and the rest don't, you know, to me is, I don't know where that came from. And it certainly has not been consistent with my experience, certainly here in the Diocese of Trenton, for belief in the Eucharist. And so what I wanted to do was just put it out there, give people a chance to reintroduce themselves to the Church's teaching, where it comes from, how it comes to be, what the Scriptures say, what the great fathers of the Church say, what the theologians say. This past week we did part 3. Part 4 is long. I'll warn you, it's a little bit longer than the other parts, but there I try to go through, bring it right up to the modern day, and to the Vatican Council, and to the teaching of contemporary papacy on the Eucharist. Then part 5 is a lexicon. It's kind of And that was a fun thing to do. It was just all the different things that are connected to the Eucharist in the church and to explain what they are. Because, although people may, or hopefully certainly do believe in the Eucharist, the things in the church that surround the celebration of the Eucharist, maybe they don't know what they're called. Or people often ask me, what is that thing? What do you call that? And so I've tried to set that up. So hopefully it'll make some contribution to our people's beliefs. This month, Jim, as you know, is the month of the Holy Souls, and you just had some folks in talk about it, and this has been a long time devotion in the church. Actually, predates the church in the Book of Maccabees, and it's a holy and wholesome thought to pray for the dead. Is there in today's Office of Readings, in Friday's Office of Readings today, the Book of Maccabees says that, and 2nd century, maybe 6th century, were centuries where this was put forward as a prominent part of our Catholic tradition and our doctrine. 11th century, around 1048, became standard practice. And in the 13th century, it was universalized everywhere that this month, the month of November, would be dedicated to the holy souls in purgatory. And we all know someone who's there, or who we believe are there in purgatory. And, you hear some people kind of dismissing some notions of purgatory, and that's a teaching of the church. It's a belief of the church that from death until eternal life, there's a period of purgation, and people are given the opportunity to make amends for sins in the course of their life. And so it's an important teaching. This week, I was in Belmar on All Saints' Day. We profess that we believe in the communion of saints, and so every year on All Saints' Day, which is the holy day of obligation.
This year,
this year. Because we're lucky it was on Tuesday. If it was on Monday, it wouldn't have been,
Or Saturday, right?
Even the bishop gets confused.
That's right, I know.
About these. Why we had to play around with those dates, I'll never know. But anyway, so I went down. Monsignor Arnister and Father Chris Dayton had invited me to come and celebrate All Saints' Day with their religious education class.
Okay.
There were about 200 kids from the religious education, and church was filled and beautiful. And that's always a challenge when you're talking to youngsters and you're talking to adults.
Right.
You want to make sure that you have something to say to both groups, something that they'll both understand and appreciate.
Right.
But I was, it's always such a thrill as a priest when you get up to celebrate the Holy Mass, to do it in front of a full church and to see the great devotion of people. And that certainly was evident at St. Rose in Belmar. And the little kids, of course, they came dressed as different saints in the procession, including Carlo Acutis. I saw one of them dressed as Carlo Acutis. Carlo Acutis, I mentioned him, died at the age of 15 of leukemia. But he was the one, he loved computers. And he developed a kind of a catalog or encyclopedia, a list of all the Eucharistic miracles in the history of the church.
Yeah.
And the boy who was dressed as Carlo had a little poster or a little picture of the monstrance, the Blessed Sacrament on him. Okay. So,
all right.
And he was wearing the blue Nike sweatshirt and sweatpants that Carlo was buried in. He's buried in the cathedral or basilica in Assisi.
Oh, okay.
And you actually, if you're there, you can go and see his body is on display perfectly intact. But it's something. It's touching to see him there with his Nike sweatshirt and his sneakers, looked like any other kid,
right? Yeah.
And yet he had such great devotion. So we visited with the kids, and then I got a chance to visit with some of the priests in the area, which was very nice. And of course, on the 2nd, we celebrate the Feast of All Souls, and those two feasts really go together. You become a saint. You're not born a saint. You become a saint and struggle through life. And as I said earlier, you hope that people will pray for you after your death, and pray for you that you have a quick returned to the Father and to eternity, and so we celebrate that every year on the 2nd. This coming week, Jim, is November 6th. The whole week, starting on Sunday, is National Vocation Awareness Week. And so the Bishops' Conference puts that out. You know, it's been celebrated at different times over the last, since 1976, I think, was when we first started to celebrate it. But it's an opportunity for us to put forward the idea that we need laborers in the vineyard and to pray that the Lord of the harvest will send laborers and touch people who maybe have a calling.
Right.
Sometimes they don't know it.
Right.
I know when I was in Washington at Catholic University, I had with this chaplain that I mentioned earlier, Father Robert Schlageter, we had discernment groups, both for men and women. And some of the boys would say to me, I never was asked. I never thought about it because I never was asked. And so it's very, very important for us to pray for vocations, but also to promote and foster them in our parishes.
Right.
We need priests,
Yeah.
and we need sisters, and religious sisters, consecrated sisters and consecrated men as brothers to do the work of the church. But here, of course, in the diocese, we focus on diocesan priests, and religious orders focus on the sisters and the brothers.
Yeah.
But that's coming up, and I ask people to pray and to encourage vocations. I know it's a coincidence. It's daylight savings time as we begin vocation awareness. The days get to darker earlier, and I think there's a movement to get rid of daylight savings time. I've heard that.
I've heard that as well. But, you know, there are two states. I know Arizona is one state where they don't have it.
Yeah, I know that.
You know,
there's 2 states in the country, Arizona and one other place.
Yeah, I forget the other. Yeah, you just stay on the same time. It just, you know, it switches.
Strange.
Everybody else switches, and you're
And I know Europe's daylight savings time was last week.
It was?
Yeah,
Okay.
it started last week.
All right.
So.
Yeah, but I have heard talk as well that to do away with it. I think that's been kind of shot down by people. I don't know why they want it, but I mean, why they would want to take it away, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just confusing. But
This week, of course, Election Day, I will be so glad when this election is over. You cannot watch a decent program on television without 400 commercials
Political
about
ads,
political
yeah.
candidates, and you know, and it's as annoying as can be. And of course, you know, they're all pitted against one another,
Right.
and we're all treated to a lot of incivility and
Right.
ugliness in some of
Right.
those commercials. So I'll just be glad when that is over.
But, you know, Bishop, I think maybe real quick, we never tell anybody who to vote for, but what is a Catholic's obligation toward exercising their right to vote?
Well, I'm going to say something
yeah.
about that because we're going to talk about it when
Okay.
the Bishop's meeting is coming.
Okay.
This Friday, the new president of Catholic University of America in Washington, where I worked for 12 years, is going to be installed, inaugurated down there, and so I hope to make it as the old guard. It's hard to believe. It's 24 years ago I went to Catholic University.
Really?
24.
Now, did you know that Judy Garland's dress was there from The Wizard of Oz in the Catholic University?
Oh, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, they found it there.
Oh, I know they have since then.
Yeah,
But in
it
my
must have
time,
been
I
there.
never heard
But it must have
anybody-
still been there somehow, right?
You
It
know,
was
there's a
hidden
lot
away
of
somewhere?
celebrities who went to Catholic,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Catholic University.
Yeah.
Some we're very proud of, and some we kind of just say their names quickly when we're going through the list of alumni and alumni. But yeah, I didn't know anything about that, but I've read about it recently,
Yeah.
and there's actually a fight about
Right, who owns it?
technically
Right?
owns
yeah.
it. It was
yeah. You can make some
Father-
money on that, though. The university could make some money if
Yeah.
they sold it.
Father Hartke, a Dominican priest, who kind of really did a lot of great work there in the School of Drama. That it was given to him somehow,
Yeah.
and it was preserved there. And for years, no one even knew it was there. And
Exactly,
I guess
yeah.
recently, last year,
Yeah.
maybe someone was going through the boxes and
Yeah.
found it, and then some of Father Hartke's relatives said, "Well, you know, the dress belongs to us; it's part of the family's." Father Hartke's legacy, and the university, of course, had a different point of view. So I don't know where that stands at the present time. I can tell you I have about zero interest.
I
in,
always think of auctioning it off.
yeah, wouldn't that be
make some
something?
money,
Yeah,
sure.
make some money for the place.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. Dr. Peter Kilpatrick is a layman, convert to Catholicism, who is now assuming the presidency there. He's been there since the summer, but and we had an opportunity to meet with him in Spring Lake earlier in the season when he came to visit with the alums at an alumni event. So I'll visit with him. I'm staying on overnight because the Diocesan pilgrimage is the next day.
Mm-hmm.
The 11th, by the way, is also, as we know, it's Veterans Day,
Yeah.
and so we honor those who have served
Mm-hmm.
our country so honorably. So I'll be happy to be in Washington on that day for Catholic University, but also a day when the nation remembers our great women and men in uniform. The pilgrimage should be beautiful. It's going to take a Eucharistic theme, obviously because of the Eucharistic revival.
Mm-hmm.
In communion with Jesus, I think, is going to be the theme of the day, and that will be a nice opportunity. We haven't had a pilgrimage to the Basilica of the National Shrine for a couple of years because of the pandemic, and so we cycle these pilgrimages every couple of years, or we have been cycling them every couple of years. I guess the last pilgrimage was 3 or 4 years ago. I forget now, but we had 56 buses going from the diocese, from the different parishes, and it was a beautiful day. This year we only have 22 buses going, so it's cut in half. I don't know whether maybe the interest in such types of things is waning a little bit, or the people who always were enthusiastic, of course, they've grown older and maybe a little less eager to travel in a bus to D.C. But it should be a great day for those who do attend. I look forward to greeting them there. I'll already be in Washington, so it'll be an opportunity. We have Mass at 2:30 in the afternoon. During the day, there'll be confessions and talks and other things. People have the opportunity to visit the shrine if you haven't been there. It's a beautiful national church. Just like Catholic use the National Catholic University, that's the National Catholic Church in our country, and so that'll be great. Then I'm staying on again for the bishops' meeting, the annual bishops' meeting, which starts on Sunday. Some of the committees meet on Sunday, and then the actual meetings will occur of the body of bishops will occur on Monday, and that'll go from Monday to Thursday. So I look forward to that, and in a minute I'll just give you some sense of the agenda, one of which is your question that you raised. On November 13th, next Sunday, is the World Day of the Poor. This is the 6th annual commemoration or celebration, I guess, would you say? No, maybe not celebration, but certainly remembrance of the poor throughout the world. Our Holy Father has written a message for that, which we'll post on the Monitor website of the diocese. Also, that will be the day for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development collection. We have a national collection for that campaign every year. You know, it's hard to imagine when I think of world poverty. It's not something that's easy to conceptualize when you think of how many billions of people there are on the planet. 1 in 9 people who inhabit this earth are poor. And that's well over 3 billion people. Here in the U.S., 42 million would be considered poor. As I say, 1 in 9 worldwide. But here in the U.S., it's a staggering statistic. We have in our country what's called a federal poverty level, and that's established by the U.S. Census Bureau and the Health and Human Services and several governmental organizations. And right now, for a family of 4, those whose income is under $27,000 a year are considered to be poor, to be under the poverty level. And here in New Jersey, 9.2% of the population of our state are considered poor. And, you know, poverty is not just statistics or numbers or or not having what others have.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the basics of life: food and shelter,
Mm-hmm.
clothing, and dignity, really, the dignity of living in this world, education. It affects, poverty affects every aspect of human living on this planet. And so the Holy Father puts this out for our consideration, for our prayer, and for our work. You know, the idea of being conscious of poverty is very present in our Catholic social teaching, and it always has been, you know, and it's rooted in our basic regard for the dignity of human life. And how about that? It touches so many areas of endeavor in our life, and each person is sacred from the moment of birth, and also each person is social. They have some responsibility one for another, created in God's image. And so we're asked to share the goods of the earth as part of our community of mercy and justice. And so this idea of a World Day of Poverty is a very important thing. We need to know about it. It's good to be informed about poverty and how it affects the world, how it affects our country, how it affects our diocese. And we need to pray for the poor. But we also need to do something. We need to act. And that's why we have Catholic Campaign for Human Development. It's why we have Catholic Charities. It's why we have Mount Carmel Gives. Why we have the Mercer County CYO. It's why we have the St. Vincent de Paul Societies to help and serve those who are in need. And so many interfaith charities as well that are worth supporting. So be conscious of that. Back to the bishops' meeting. This is our first in-person gathering. We're not Zooming this year. We're going to be in person again. I always find when I go to the meeting, half of the people I don't recognize because so many retire and so many new bishops are appointed. So there are multiple items on the agenda. Of course, pro-life is always an issue. And the focus since the summer 6 Supreme Court decision is shifting a little bit to what is it that we can do to help pregnant women and walk with moms in need is the initiative that you hear about, and that's so very important. So we're going to discuss that and maybe get some ideas there to bring back to our dioceses. We're going to establish kind of a list of priorities. It's time for us to establish a new 5-year plan, so that'll be on the agenda. We'll elect new officers, a new president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, a new vice president, and different chair people on the different committees. We'll have the usual reports that are given, and they can be a little bit strained. You kind of have to hopefully have a comfortable seat because the reports go on and on and on.
Right.
And then we're going to look over this idea of faithful citizenship that you asked about, because as you say, the Church does not endorse the Catholic Church does not endorse any political candidates or any political parties. But that doesn't mean the Church is absent from life in the public square, as they call it. And so the Bishop Conference wrote a document in 2007, it was 2007, called Faithful Citizenship, Forming Consciences. And every couple of years they take a look at it again and revise it, and that's up for discussion again this year. It's a 44, 45-page document. And frankly, I don't know a lot of people who read it. So, how influential it is on people, I'm not sure. But the Church does have a responsibility to encourage people to be good citizens, but good citizens who are faithful to what they believe. That's where the conscience comes in. Sometimes people talk about consciences. Well, my conscience means I can do whatever I want.
Right.
And that's not what a conscience is. Conscience has to be formed.
Right.
And what's it formed by? It's formed by truth. And who teaches the truth? The Church.
Right.
I don't vote for this candidate or that candidate because he's Catholic or not Catholic, or even because I'm Catholic.
Right.
I vote for those people because they represent what I believe should be the way that that our life and our times should move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely based on
Right.
my faith in God and my faith in the church and what it teaches. And so to say that that shouldn't enter into I just think that's wrong thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Your faith is part of your life.
Right.
And that's true of us, those of us who are voted, and it should be true for those who are voted for.
Yeah.
Their faith should influence their life and their decision making. So we don't have a Catholic slate of candidates. We have candidates who are Catholic and many who are not.
Mm-hmm.
And we who are Catholics are encouraged by the Church to exercise our civic responsibility for the common good
Mm-hmm.
and to vote. And I encourage people to think deeply and prayerfully about what it is that they believe,
Mm.
and to make that the foundation of decisions that you make. And I'll leave it at that. Does that answer the question?
Well, yeah, I guess that, as people go to the voting booth, you hear a lot about the confusion. I guess, people are confused because we have a man in the White House who calls himself Catholic, but is so far away from so many of our Catholic teachings and beliefs that how do you justify that? And how
Yeah.
to,
And a governor as well.
and a governor as well. That's right.
Yeah, and many others. It's not
Yeah.
just those two.
No, but those are
folks.
for us here in New Jersey, especially. We think about the governor, but I just people have to go with as you say, well-formed conscience. And how do they get that well-formed conscience? Where's that coming from? And
Yeah, it should be some sense of what the church teaches
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
why the church teaches it, and that's why we believe what we believe,
Yeah.
and that should influence us.
right.
You can't divorce your life of faith from your life in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the reason we are, the reason why we are part of the church, or called to be part of the church, baptized in the church, taught in the church, given the sacraments in the church, is because they're important to our life.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is based on our sense of the truth, and the church does teach that. And so to have an informed conscience
Mm-hmm.
means to have a conscience that seeks to know and understand the truth as the church teaches it.
Yeah.
And so we hope that that's going to be brought to bear both in the voter and the ones voted for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the moral obligation and the consequences of knowing, having full knowledge of who you're voting for and what he or she may stand for, that is against what you believe as a Catholic. There's a moral obligation to be aware of that.
The fact of the matter is, we have our fingerprints
Mm-hmm.
on the decisions we make.
Yeah.
And we really should think seriously about those decisions and
Yeah.
which candidates best represent what we believe.
Right. Right.
And that's the way that we should move forward. We're not
Yeah.
telling people who to vote for,
No.
what party to support,
No.
but we're just saying here are the fundamentals of human life and human living, and
Mm-hmm.
here's the truth and how the truth influences us, and you got to make your decision.
Yeah.
And then in the end, like everything in life, we face God in conscience. We face God
Right. Mm-hmm.
in a sense of accountability for the decisions we make and the things that we do.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm. Good.
there's some people's point of view. To me, is I wouldn't want to be in their shoes on Judgment Day. Let me
Yeah.
just say that.
Yeah. You got to pray for him.
Especially in the life issues.
Yeah.
And also at the bishops' meeting, we'll go through, as we do all the time, our efforts to ensure child protection in the
Mhm.
church and to address, this ongoing crisis that really has affected so many
Mhm.
people. We'll talk about the synod and the next phase of the synod, the diocesan phase we've done already here in the diocese and all the dioceses. We send in our reports, then the bishops' conference, the committee on doctrine, and I'm sure there are many hands at work here, kind of put it all together and summarize it. There's a national synthesis of the diocesan. I'm not glad I'm not on that committee. I can imagine reading 195 dioceses' reports and try to consolidate them.
Right.
But I must tell you, in reading that national synthesis and reading our own and reading some other diocese reports, those in New Jersey here, nothing really surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the issues that people that are talked about. And during this diocesan phase of the synod, maybe they had the opportunity to speak about them with a little more passion.
Mm-hmm.
I think people were grateful for the opportunity, although the participation if you want to look at it from a statistical point of view, was not so great.
Mm-hmm.
We had 23 parishes that really, out of the 100 out of the 97 that really didn't do anything for the synod, which was a disappointment to me. But those who did a great job. We had two co-chairs, Mary Liz Ivins, who was longtime principal at Notre Dame, and who works now in child protection for the diocese, and then Deacon Pat Brannigan, who used to be the head of the New Jersey Catholic Conference, the director, working with our Chancellor, Terry Ginter, and they did a wonderful job traveling around the diocese, giving talks and encouraging these listening sessions. That was the big word, listening. And from the beginning, the Holy Father made it clear that the point of this was not to change the teachings of the Church, but to hear what people are saying. And of course, they continue to be suspicious that there's other motive for the synod, and that discussion goes on and on. There are some websites and some other journalists, if you want to call them that, I'm not sure, that no matter what comes out of Rome, it's bad. No matter what comes out of a bishop's mouth, it's wrong. Every bishop is bad. No bishop is good. Even the good ones are not good.
Right. There's an ulterior motive.
You just get tired of hearing it. That we just got.
No, I was reading yesterday an article saying that they're evaluating this in their gay marriage and women priests, and this is all this is coming out through the synod.
Well, it comes up.
It comes up, but it doesn't mean it's going to change.
It doesn't. It doesn't mean it's going to change, and but again, people are just even the way sometimes that the phrasing is in some of these reports. I mean, you have to say it some way,
right?
And people just take it any which way. And of course, we live in a time where, the vitriol is everywhere, and including in the church,
right?
Bashing one another back and forth. The point of the cinema is just listen, hear what people say.
I always say we evangelize. We want people to come into the church. Nobody wants to come into a church that's beating itself up and tearing itself down.
Yeah, and these people who set themselves up, as arbiters of truth, who have no, they don't have, they're not consecrated, ordained. Yeah. They're not part of the magisterium,
right?
In the sense of the authentic teaching magisterium, but they set themselves up as an alternative magisterium. So you can almost count on it when something comes out of the Holy See, or comes out of Rome and the Vatican, or comes out of the Bishops' Conference, or even locally comes out of my office. That people are just going to criticize it just because that's where it came from,
right?
And maybe. It's sad.
It is.
That's the time
because we're called to build up the kingdom. We're not called to tear it down.
Yeah, that's right. And that's happened. A lot of destruction.
Yeah.
Eucharistic revival, that continues, and there'll be some discussion about. There's going to be a Congress, Eucharistic Congress, held in Indianapolis, Indiana, in 2024. So there'll be some preparation discussions about that. It's going to be a very expensive project. It's something like $28 million.
Wow.
For this whole overall project, I'm not a huge fan of like these national gatherings. I don't know, how much good actually comes out of them, but certainly we'll support as best we can as a diocese. And this year, the Bishops' Conference, there's going to be much more in executive session. They're changing the format. I understand they have round tables. There's going to be much more group kind of breakout sessions. And that more of it is going to be executive, so that means it won't be covered by the press. It won't be on the television on a continuous basis. And some people say, "Well, we are not being transparent," and all this. You hear that, and then others say, "Well, really, the meeting is for the bishops to try to help move the church forward." And with the cameras rolling, it's hard to do that honestly. And I can tell you as a bishop, and I have respect for the Bishops' Conference, and I have respect for my brother bishops, but, we are human beings, and some like to play to the camera, some have never met a microphone they didn't like,
right?
And so that some of us will chuckle together during the meetings and say, well, okay, these 5 guys are going to get up. We know they will, no matter what the topic. But I think it would be good for us to have an opportunity together to talk without worrying about what's going to appear in the.
It's almost like when you think post-pandemic, things must have changed, and just as far as the people go, and their attitude toward even going to mass anymore, because I'm so used to sitting at home and watching on YouTube.
Yeah, and the pastors are telling me, the priests are telling me that that the attendance is stronger and better, and it gets better and better as time goes on. But it's not where it was. I think some people are just still afraid. I mean, and you hear every once in a while there's a wave of news coverage of, it's a new wave of a new type of COVID is coming out and all of this. And, the vaccines, we were lied to and nothing really works. And, you hear all these kinds of things and you don't know what to believe
anymore. Yeah.
So I just say, you just get as much good information as you can and make the decisions that you make. But I'm happy to see the churches are filling up again. And, of course, this Christmas will be an interesting time to see how we make out.
It's Sunday. It's on a Sunday.
Yeah, it's on a Sunday. So
that's probably not the pastor's favorite day for Christmas to fall on, right?
No, yeah.
But
I mean, it has to. It has to be on Sundays once every couple of years.
That's right.
So, and before Christmas, of course, we have Thanksgiving, and that's a wonderful time in our country to thank God for all his many blessings and gifts, and we'll do that early in December. I'll be back in December, but December 4th, I just want to put a plug in for our Diocesan Festival Choir under the direction of Sean Mack. We're going to do Handel's Messiah on December 4th at St. Joseph Parish in Toms River.
Okay.
And so the festival choir will be there, 3:00 in the afternoon. So that's worth considering, if you're looking for something
nice.
What
day of the week? Is that a Sunday?
December 4th? I don't.
If it's in the afternoon, it must be a weekend. If it's at 3:00.
It's got to be. It's got to be a weekend. It's not going to be on that week because it's 3:00. It's either a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
I could find that out right now. Oh, you got a counter right here. Hold on.
There you go. Yeah, there's the camera.
Let's see. It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. Good.
Second Sunday of Advent.
Okay, good.
So beautiful time. I also had the chance yesterday to meet with Father Kevin Kimptis, one of our diocesan priests, who works in the Apostolic Nunciature in India.
Oh, wow.
I sent him for canon law, and while he was in Rome studying for canon law, he was picked up by the diplomatic service and trained to be a papal diplomat. And so he's working there as the secretary to the nuncio in New Delhi.
Wow.
Big job. And so he's home for a little home visit. So we had a chance to get together last night with some of his friends and enjoy a meal. So
good.
That should do it.
Well, it's certainly a lot going on. And we thank, as always, Bishop, for
no grass is growing under my feet. Or foot, I should say.
No, you're right. You're very busy, but that's good. It's a good thing to have. So we're happy to have you. And look forward to having you again next month.
Beautiful.
December must be December 2nd.
I look forward to it too. God bless you.
All right, Bishop, thank you. Thank you.